Just doesn't work. What Allah talks about is clefting asunder a major mass, and he talks about a lot of things which would fit sort of what they say, but he did it in an organized way. But I'm going to ask you just a simple question. If there was a large mass and it just blew up, would you have chaos or order? Now, by the way, when you start talking about bombs and blowing up stuff, you're talking to the experts. We're the Muslims. Just kidding. But for sure, we've all seen it on TV. Everything that gets blown up is horrible. But when you look to the universe, it's beautiful. This earth couldn't come about something blowing up. You know that. And how did life come out of a rock? Where did the water come from? And if it was the blue-green algae that they talk about, how did anything come along to eat it? And they said it in one of the children's books, in the biology book for children, and it said that after a while, the blue-green algae started to form, apart from itself, life forms that began to eat the blue-green algae. I think that's called cannibalism, isn't it? And if that were really true, then some part of it would have eaten up all the rest of it. Eventually there wouldn't be nothing left at all. But then something bigger came along and ate that, and something bigger ate that, and these developed into that, which ate this, or that. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there, folks. And then it went on to say something amazing. How did the birds come about? I saw this in the book. You want to talk about fairy tales? Do you want to talk about something really, you don't need faith, you need a brain transplant. Listen to this. And it showed pictures. It said that, those animals in the sea got bigger and bigger and huger and huger and huger. And about 4 billion years ago, they changed to this, and 3 billion years ago, they were this, and you've seen the books, yeah? And then suddenly, they started jumping out of the water, and so much so that after so many years and so many, their gills became wings, and they got longer and longer. And why were they jumping out of the water? So they could catch the bugs that were flying over. Huh? Where'd the bugs come from? I mean, didn't you stop to think when you made up this story that somebody was going to read it, that knew how to read and understand? Where did the bugs come from? Were these like little minnows that were jumping up there to get the mosquitoes? And where did they come? Oh, those were the, please. And one of the most famous of the false theories they have is that fish became birds. How many of you know that? That's one of the, I'm not joking, that's one of the premises that they have, that these fish, you can look at, it's so much like such and such kind of bird. I'm a bird hunter. I'm from Texas. I'm a fisherman. We do all that stuff down there. I've cut open a lot of fish, and I've cut open a lot of birds. No way, Ray. Those gills didn't turn into feathers. Huh? No. And those things sticking out of the side, you know what I'm saying? That didn't become wings. Please. The whole design of a fish is the opposite of the design of a bird. Birds have to be ultra light. Otherwise, they can't fly. Everything's got to be hollow bones. Everything in the body's got to be lightweight. And even a big-looking bird, if you pulled all his feathers off, there's hardly anything there. You know what I'm saying? But with the fish, he's not this way, is he? No, he's this way. What did they do? He fell over like that and jumped out of the... Come on, please. Why don't you just believe what Allah said? That He is the one who created everything. He brought forth all life. And He brought it forth in pairs. He brought life in pairs. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Have you heard that one? If you said, well, the chicken. Well, where'd the chicken come from? Egg. Oh, where'd the egg come from? Chicken. Where'd the chicken come from? Egg. That's really one of the things they ask you about in philosophy. It's the old chicken and egg routine, isn't it, boys? What? Allah didn't tell you anything about eggs. He brought two of everything, male and female. That's how He started it up. And by the way, That is exactly what the scientists have now come to agree on. There are things that just showed up one day in the history of the world, and they don't know where they came from. And they already had motivation skills, not motivation, mobile skills that they could move. How? And so they said, and they won't admit God, that said, but there is some intelligent design. So they call it ID. Have you heard of ID? That's the latest thing. Let me tell you something. It was Sheikh Zandani that came out with this over 20 years ago. Because he's the one that brought the scholars together and made the videos that are on my website. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always preserve him and give him strength and accept from him. Ameen. Because this is an amazing thing. Now, just what I said today, and now I'm going to go back to the Quran and finish the program. I know some of you are in a hurry to get home. Can't wait to get back to the boob tube. And so, fine. But what did Allah say in Surah Al-Rahman that's such a big deal? Besides the fact that he talked about the oceans coming together, about people doing space travel, that's in the Quran. Many of the things that I'm telling you about, but it's what he said in between each one that makes the big home run with me. And what is the ayah that keeps being repeated over and over and over? A'udhu billahi min shaitanir rajim. Let me hear it. It's amazing, and I didn't tell them what to say this time, did I? And they knew. It means so. It starts out with fa, which means so. So, after you just heard this proof, so, which of the favors of your Lord will you too then deny? The truth is in front of you. And the science that we talk about today came about as a result of Allah, our God and your God, sending down this revelation 1400 years ago. We'll quickly gloss, that's all, quickly right now, just so you can see something. You wouldn't even have computers today if it weren't for Muslims and their science. Of course, we attribute it to Allah, because you wouldn't even be able to understand how to turn a computer on, because the binary system needs a zero, because it's only 0, 1, 0, 1, yes or no, on or off. And there was no zero until a Muslim in India came with the concept of letting something represent nothing, and then you can make the numbers work. Because in the Roman Latin world that they lived in, those Roman numerals didn't work. You can't do long division with Roman numerals. You can't multiply and figure out the tax and the sale on something with Roman numerals. And yet Europe waited 200 years before they would accept the Roman, the numerals weren't going to work, because they didn't want to accept it from the Muslims in Spain. And even then they wouldn't attribute it to Muslims. They called it Arabic. The Arabic numbering system that came from India. Why? Because they wouldn't admit that was a Muslim in India. They called him an Arab. It's true. Today, the numbers that you use, every time you write them down, came from this man. And what about algebra? That's the next step after using a zero to represent the nothing position, so you can then go to the minus position, so that you can also do the decimal 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1 million, and today we go all the way to Googleplex. I don't know what it looks like on paper, but I heard about it. After that, though, is when you use a letter and substitute a letter for something that's unknown, yet a constant, that you know that when we resolve everything else, that we now will know what this letter is. And that's called what in English? I can't hear you. Algebra? Algebra. Algebra. That's the guy's name. Algebra? Yeah, well, if you try hard enough, you can make people hear something else, can't you? What about